Napoleon said, "China is a sleeping giant. Let her sleep." But today the giant has awakened and is realizing his strength. To find out how people were living on different levels entailed a 4,000-mile journey to 4 great cities: Canton, Shanghai, Peking, and Wuhan. At Canton, the legendary Pearl River, rich in color and strange sounds. Along its banks, a new department store. A 14-story hotel built during European occupation. And by contrast, the homes of the Pearl River people, who live out their entire lives on small boats. For centuries, a depressed people, overtaxed, exploited by river gangsters, disease-ridden, the shunned untouchables of China. Life on this low level appears inadequate to a Westerner, but for these humble folk, there is improvement. Mum can even keep a few fowls. Most of the children are eager to attend the newly established schools. But we know someone who won't be there. His pal Ching is going, and he carries his own life insurance. He may need it if he comes this way to school. For the convenience of the river people, schools are built right on the river. Here, boats can call and leave children while their parents are away fishing and ferrying produce. After drinking infected river water for centuries, the river people are glad of even such a simple thing as pure water from stations established for miles along the river. Clean water, medical and maternity clinics are raising the standard of health. At one time, 50% of the babies born on the river died. Doctors and nurses have succeeded in considerably reducing this percentage. For the people of the river, life is no longer hopeless, but still very limited. By contrast, at Shanghai, David Kwok, Australian-born millionaire, lives with his family in their customary luxurious style. One of the few big capitalists who had the courage to remain in China, Kwok operates the Wing On Textile Mills, now a prosperous joint state-private enterprise. For 7 years, he will draw an annual interest of 5% on the value of his mills. But in 1962, the state takes over, and he'll get only his salary as manager. Kwok said he had no regrets. He is one of the slowly disappearing race of communist capitalists, of which there are still some 400,000. Shanghai, the world's 4th largest city, is now entirely Chinese. Business is brisk, but luxuries are expensive, and the attire of the people reflects a program of austerity during China's industrial expansion. It is still necessary to control the traffic by beacon operated by police wearing masks as protection from the dust. The famous Shanghai racecourse is now a public park. The stands, once thronged with fashionable European crowds, now look out on a stadium for basketball. Races of a kind are still held along the track where favourites thundered, but only for 2 to 4-year-olds. If you follow the jockeys, put your money on Top Knot. Shanghai was, for 106 years, the chief base for European occupation and influence. This ended in 1949, but the port is still the main outlet for China's trade. Here is color and adventure. The swift sea-going junks sail in from Hainan, their russet sails glowing in the afternoon sun. The river teems with ships, trading with 70 countries. Some have run the gauntlet past the island of Formosa, an area still a war zone. Shanghai looks the same, but to the roving European sailor, there is no longer a challenge to go ashore. It's as safe as a Sunday school picnic. Behind the towering monuments of European enterprise, the nightclubs are closed. The red lights have gone out. The wicked lady of the East has reformed. Along the famous Bund, it is strangely quiet. Motor traffic has dwindled to a trickle, but there is still one spot for the European sailor. Old China hands will remember the building that once housed the most exclusive club in Shanghai and the Long Bar. In 1949, the club was closed and the Long Bar dismantled. 2 years passed and the building became a club for seamen of all nations. Then, at the fervent request of all thirsty sailors, it was brought back. It was rebuilt. The longest saloon bar in the world. Here flows the salty gossip of the China seas, told in a babel of tongues. A Scottish captain from Dunbartonshire describes it as the best equipped seamen's club in the world. Why, man, you can buy a whisky, double measure for $1. Gin for the Dutchman, wines for the Italians. For the Australian and the Englishman, there's beer, a drink now popular even with the Chinese. And the lone New Zealander can buy a lady a cup of tea with milk and sugar, a rarity in China. The Seamen's Club is a haven for the men who sail the China seas, a region still fraught with danger. Peking has been a capital city for 2,200 years. Surrounded by a moat and high walls are the imperial palaces known as the Forbidden City. Famous since the days of Marco Polo for its architectural wonders, Peking is the cultural and educational center of China. It has 28 modern universities and many museums of art and history. Between modern office buildings, we look down a main street. In the distance is the gateway of the Tower of the Drum. This is the fabulous Peking Hotel. Equipped with 3 immense and ornate reception halls, it's the scene of most of the social activity of modern Peking. The more eminent foreign visitors reside here and have at their disposal a fleet of large Russian ZIS cars. There are very few privately owned cars in China. Late model American, British and German vehicles are available to less notable visitors. For mere ordinary mortals, the best way to explore this fascinating city is by pedicab. It's cheap and you have time to observe. Passing Peking's front gate, you wander through narrow streets in search of the unusual. We see no houses along the tree-lined boulevards, they're all enclosed in high walls. A traffic cop is pointing his baton this way, so we pull up long enough to view a film poster and the nearby displays of still photographs. Further along the boulevard is one of the hundreds of newspaper boards located throughout the city. With so many people just learning to read, it has an absorbing new interest. Along the narrow back streets with their motley collection of food stores and handicrafts, you find hardy old characters like this peddler of toys made in the villages. His audience includes the very latest 2 top-knots. An appetizing aroma draws us to a curbside cafe for workers, where they sell a meal of fish and wine for about $1. A variety of seafood is prepared here in Chinese fashion, and sold by weight on a simple rod scale that's been in use for centuries. Served with the meal is a powerful concoction called Bai Gan, a spirit distilled from the sorghum. Labeled out with loving care, it has the kick of a rocket fuel, guaranteed to lift you into space. But to these hardy old toilers of the road, it is merely an appetizer to be sipped as you watch the busy world go by. The new Peking post office is taking shape within a cocoon of bamboo scaffolding. Soon we were off again, hot on the trail of a great bargain. Peking radio had warned of a sudden change. Bitter winds from Siberia, they said. So we searched for a street full of shaggy fur coats selling at £8 each. We were glad we got there before the Marx Brothers and just had to try one on to see if the moths would fly out. Two crazy Westerners climbing into Arctic attire while temperature soared was too much for these polite people. For the first time, we had them laughing out loud. It was a shaggy goat story they'd be telling in all the bazaars. Blocks of standardized flats are the government's answer to the housing problem. Built or building, you find them everywhere throughout China. The modern and the old and picturesque are never far away. In one of these blocks of flats at Wuhan, tool factory machinist Chi-Chu Wu lives with his wife and family. Sunday is the only holiday in the week, and Chi likes to spend it with his children, fishing in the East Lake district. Here he finds relaxation from the pressure of modern industry. Sunday is the big shopping day, the busiest day of the week at state department stores. In Peking, you can buy more cheaply and with a better variety of choice than anywhere in Russia. Featured in the window displays are spirits, wine and beer sold freely without license throughout China. Although prices are reasonable, insobriety is rarely seen. In a world of changing values, silk embroidery, a traditional art, continues to excite feminine interest. Children have always been loved in China. What little money there is for luxuries is spent on them. They have none of the expensive mechanical toys we buy in the West. Yet all the old favorites are here, dolls and animals, perhaps unorthodox in design, but ready to win little hearts. For Chinese Christians, Sunday is still a day of worship. The magnificent Catholic Cathedral at Peking continues to conduct services, but under great difficulties, because the present government forbids any contact with the Vatican. Many sincere Christians have accepted a compromise, and like this choir of devoted young people, are keeping the church open. Chinese priests say they are losing many of the younger members of their congregations through the attractions of Sunday sport and entertainment. Cut off from the help and encouragement of the outside world, the future of the church in China is uncertain. By contrast, the community church in Shanghai, one of the 160 Protestant churches in that city, reports crowded attendances. Its Chinese clergy are free to preach the gospel, but practical application of its ethical teachings in social or public affairs is limited. Sunday afternoon generally finds the people of Peking enjoying their many public parks. Tian An Park contains the Temple of Heaven, a spectacular and unique design of beauty, according to the ancient belief that the heavens were round and the earth square. The Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests is built on a triple-tiered stone terrace, balustraded with carved white marble. The roof, with its 3 layers of eaves, is tiled in deep cobalt blue, symbolizing the sky. Standing alone and almost forgotten some 20 miles from the city is probably the finest marble archway in China, the Pai Lu, built in 1541. Around this impressive entrance to the Ming tombs is an atmosphere of strange, eerie silence. But there's no silence at the Peking Zoo, where over 1,000 animals have been collected, many from within China's wide borders. This queer little native that might be a dog, a cat or a bear is actually none of these, but the smaller cousin of that unique clown of the animal world, the giant panda, rarest and most lovable of all Chinese creatures. He couldn't care less about 5-year plans. He's lying down on the job. Found only in China, on the slopes of the Himalayas, 7 to 10,000 feet above sea level, the giant panda lives alone, not in groups, which may account for his social behavior. Pardon me. A bad example to the industrious Chinese, the comrade who couldn't care less. Not a bear, but an entirely separate species, distantly related to the American raccoon. Living among the bamboo forests on the mountains, his long hair gives him protection against the intense cold at great heights. His front feet are equipped with a toe that resembles and functions as a thumb, enabling him to hold and chew the bamboo shoots that are his staple diet. Quaint, almost human attitudes are a continual source of fun. Known to the Western world for less than 100 years, a giant panda was not captured till 1937 and is still extremely rare in captivity, but his image in toys and picture books is a firm favorite throughout the world. A popular Sunday afternoon visiting point is the Tian An Men, the gateway of heavenly peace, regarded as the political center of China. From its high parapet in feudal days, the emperor's divine decrees were given out, and in 1949, China was here proclaimed a republic. Its historical significance is such that young Chinese like to be photographed here, just as British visitors are photographed in Trafalgar Square. On China's National Day, a spectacular parade is held in this square. And at night, viewed from the top of this gateway, a vast fireworks display entertains countless thousands. It was during these celebrations that a feathered cloak, a goodwill gesture from a section of the Maoris of New Zealand, was presented to Mao Zedong, the peasant leader of the Chinese Republic. This is the man who has united a quarter of the world's population and set them on the road to modernization. As a young student at the picturesque University of Peking, Mao Zedong began to spread the seeds of revolution and helped to found in China an entirely new political force. The tradition here is still revolutionary, and sections of its intellectuals question the status quo. The University of Peking is entrusted with the task of training specialists for research in the theoretical and basic sciences. There are 1,200 teachers and over 8,000 students. About 21% of these students are women, and these earnest young people are typical of the new generation that aims to lead China towards industrial equality with other nations of the world. Many arts encouraged in China is ballet. At the Peking Dancing School, promising pupils are boarded and taught. Recent visits of the Ballet Rambert from London and the Russian ballet have given encouragement. Huang Pat Hung, a senior pupil, is performing a French ballet. Her partner is Ga Chu Chiat, who studied at Sadler's Wells. In Peking's modern western suburbs, the drive for technical advancement continues. It is well for the West to be aware of the extent of this movement, which follows the Russian pattern. The Peking Medical College. The Peking Institute of Iron and Steel. There are 20 of these large training centers in this area, with a total enrollment of 65,000 students. The Institute of Aeronautics. In the midst of the most modern, you may yet see the most ancient and backward. The Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. With a model mine shaft and poppet heads for practical demonstration. The Peking Planetarium, with a Zeiss projector for the instruction in the form and motion of celestial bodies. It draws curious crowds from as far away as Tibet and serves to dispel many forms of superstition. China is planning to become a major industrial power in 15 years. The plan calls for growing numbers of trained technicians. This Shanghai factory employs 4,000 people in the production of steam turbine generators in 2 sizes. The output is small, but heavy industry on this scale was unknown in South China until recently, and their engineers are slowly mastering its complexities. At Wuhan, a large iron and steel industry is taking shape to supply the basic materials for numbers of new factories. The powerhouse for this project is built and ready to run. Nearby, the #1 machine tool factory is busy overcoming many initial difficulties. The machines in this shop are all built in China and have Chinese brands cast in their frames. To save foreign currency, anything that can be made in their factories is produced regardless of cost in labor. As well as machine tools, they turn out printing machines, looms and spinning machines, medical equipment, motor trucks, bicycles, projectors and cameras. But her industrial expansion is so rapid that she is now looking to the outside world to equip her factories with heavy machine tools and measuring instruments that could well be British. China's rising production capacity should not be underestimated. The bridging of the mighty Yangtze River has been a dream for centuries. Today, it's an accomplished fact. To build foundations for the piers in these turbulent waters, the Chinese had to try new methods. Neither the equipment nor the experience for the time-honored system of working men under air pressure in sealed caissons. Yet here it stands, more than twice as long as the famous Sydney Harbour Bridge, built at a cost of 11 million sterling and completed in 26 months, a year ahead of schedule. Beneath its 75-foot wide roadway is a double railway track linking together trunk lines that stretch 1,500 miles across the center of China. The project was regarded as a training ground for young engineers and technicians, 3,700 of them. Not one man was required to work under air pressure. This constant threat to life and health was avoided by the new method of sinking bridge foundations known as pipe drilling. It consisted of sinking a large number of reinforced concrete tubes in the bed of the river. Sections bolted together were driven down through the silt to bedrock. A giant pneumatic drill with a pressure of 160 tons shock drilled holes in the rock with a steel bit weighing 5 tons. aided by water jetting at tremendous pressure. A steel lining was inserted in each tube, which was then filled with concrete. No new methods were used to build the approaches, only the age-old slogging labor of the Chinese coolie with barrow and basket. But urged on by propaganda and their own enthusiasm, the young people of the city of Wuhan came in their hundreds to lend a hand in the final cleanup. Volunteers were expected to give 4 hours free labor. This group of office staff has literally knocked off work to carry bricks. We found them joking and chipping each other as they bent their backs for the bridge they'd soon be using. There'll be some sore muscles at the office tomorrow, but who cares? All this was surprising, but then we found amongst the laborers setting the pace a city councillor and the mayor of Wuhan, a city of 3.5 million. Our New Zealander could hardly resist this shining example, and the Chinese took a keen delight in loading him up. This is how we left them, busy as bees, disciplined, and dedicated to achieving China's destiny as a world power. Will the wisdom of an ancient civilization moderate the decisions of modern China and build a bridge of mutual understanding between the East and the West?